Okay, it's quite soon, 10 o'clock, and we will start quite promptly. But let's wait a minute still. Yeah, I think it's 10 o'clock, and as we have lots to talk about today, so we will start right off. Welcome to the webinar on the latest research on social inclusion in sports. I have to say that we are actually recording this session, this webinar, so you will be able to review it again and get a link to the webinar recording, and also you will get all the presentations afterwards, after the webinar. Just a few words from my side. We have really interesting people, interesting researchers here today talking. So just a couple of words about the project who organizes these webinars. So this is a Unified Through Basketball Erasmus Plus Sport project. And this is a project for 1 year, but with kind of massive major activities actually concentrating on the social inclusion through sport. And we will be discussing that also through the researchers today. So 6 major activities. We are reaching out to minorities and those at high risk of exclusion. We have international partners, obviously, because this is an Erasmus Sport project. So Nordic partners, but also people from Greece, Portugal, Lithuania, Latvia, and also other countries throughout Europe participating in our activities. Our cooperational parties are local basketball clubs here in Finland, but also Special Olympics Europe and Eurasia, Finnish Paralympic Committee, and other sport associations and organizations. And for the 6 major activities, I can say a few words now about them, just to get you an idea of what we do here. So the coaching and sports seminars and webinars are on their way. This is our first webinar. You will be hearing from us in a week. So we will be having another webinar next Friday also. We are supporting low threshold basketball events throughout the summer, throughout the country, but also with our international partners, promoting wheelchair basketball, unified basketball, and other low threshold basketball activities. We will be hosting a Nordic wheelchair basketball tournament and a unified camp. And the unified camp is organized during our major event this year, Eurobasket 25. Local fan events with the local basketball clubs will be organized also during Eurobasket, spreading the word about social inclusion through sport. And our inclusive volunteer program takes people from various backgrounds to Eurobasket to work with us in this major event. So it's going to be a huge deal for all those people, for us also. But that's enough from our side. Let's continue to the webinar. So today we'll be hearing the list about the research and other findings on social inclusion through sport. And I will give the floor to our researchers from the University of Helsinki. And let's hear first from Malte. Gasche, did I pronounce it right?
Malte. I'm
Malte.
from Germany, but Malte is a Danish name, and okay. It's a Danish name. I will. Can I switch to my?
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
To my own.
Welcome also, Jatta. We will be talking with you in a half an hour. If you have any questions, you can just write them to the chat. We have Viola here who is monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions, we have like 5 minutes after Malte's presentation. Malte, sorry.
It's not Spanish. It's not Spanish.
Yeah.
Do you see my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, we do.
We do. Design slideshow. Okay, from start. So there are so many pictures, so it's really slow. So now you have it. Good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation to this to speak about my research initiatives. And today we'll speak about an exhibition project. And this exhibition project is connected to this research initiative, what we had, integration and empowerment, organized sports in newcomers, Finland, what was founded by the Conny Foundation. And this exhibition project was the final sub-project within this project. The project is produced in collaboration with Tahto, the Center for Finnish Sports Culture, and the exhibition entitled Promoting Diversity in Finnish Sports. And this is part of the broader exhibition Sports United. So we're really close to your project's title. Finland's sports landscape. Here you can see already a few items, and you see already where it's number 15 in Bonn. So we have also a basketball player. It's from Maurizio Patrese. This I can already tell you in advance. And you can also visit this exhibition digitally. And it's now for the next 2 months, we have also a physical exhibition. Unfortunately, you can read the stories and look at the pictures in the English version, but the interviews which we conducted with all of these people, former sportsmen and coaches and sport officials nowadays, they are only in Finnish. So Finland's sports landscape has been traditionally very homogeneous. Even I have also conducted research on circus in my previous activities, and there we could, of course, say there were always multicultural corners in the society. For example, at Circus Sariola, already in the 30s and 40s, you could have artists from Hungary, Estonia, Germany, and Austria. But however, when you look at the pictures and also at the coaches and also at on the sports decision level, it's really homogeneous. Both in terms of its participants and leadership structures. However, with ongoing demographic changes and a more globalized society, questions of inclusion, representation, and accessibility in sports have become increasingly relevant. Organized sports are a crucial space where social inclusion processes take place, and where both opportunities and challenges related to diversity and socioeconomic background become more and more visible. As who belongs in sports? How do socioeconomic influence access, and who gets access to leaders' decision-making positions? And I think these are the questions we have to ask you. We have to ask us today, and we are asking this in exhibition project. And I think from a basketball perspective, maybe these socioeconomic factors are not so highly important. But if you look at skiing or ice hockey, there are no single mothers anymore in my club, at least. But we can talk about this later. Research on these issues has been rather limited so far in Finland, and it is a long way from having established its own field as it is, for instance, in many other research communities. But you mentioned also partners from Sweden and Denmark, and there they have their own study field already. So we are really limited with our resources here at the University of Helsinki. I'm also really happy that I can speak about this project today because, and we had the exhibition because it also compensates for the conceptual weaknesses of the project, for our project at the time when we wrote and submitted our proposal. And this was rather 4 or 5 years ago when we wrote this proposal or conceptualized it. So it was primary focus was on understanding the role of organized sports in integrating newcomers, migrants into Finnish society. However, while integration and newcomers emphasize intro in existing system, and this is also critics, I take it, criticizing this proposal by myself nowadays, often implying adaptation to a dominant culture, because it's already existing. If we are speaking about newcomers and if we're speaking about integration, then we are accepting that there is already a static system of a dominant cultures and others have to integrate. So I really like that you're speaking about inclusion, and I should also more or less mention that we have an inclusion project, but I think in this exhibition we managed to do this. However, inclusion and diversity in context shift the focus to the system itself, highlighting openness, participation, and the value of difference and opportunities. So this is really important for me to say at this point. Yeah, and during the project, it became clear that our focus perspective was for me too narrow. And also, when we speak, it was risk when we had fixed group as newcomers, migrants of the second generation, and other terms. Then we really didn't consider the fluidity and complicity of individual identities and life experience in sport context. And the diverse biographies of the featured individuals in the exhibition suggest that they should consider moving away from categorizing people. Instead, we should focus on fostering the inclusion of people from diverse backgrounds and across generations in sport here and now. So we featured in our exhibition Eva Rönke, and I think you know her, and you have also invited her, and her discipline is ski orienteering. Mustafa Asadi, who got the UEFA prize for inclusion for a couple of years ago. Then we had Maurizio Patrese in basketball, but who was also really involved in soccer. Frauke Kubista, material arts, but she was also a physical coach for the women under 18 ice hockey team for a couple of years. Ilya Pasov, ice hockey. And then we had Vanja Radic, handball. You see, we managed the gender equality, but maybe not when it comes to the discipline. So we had four team sports, but I think they are rather representative. As a basketball, ice hockey, soccer belong to the most popular sports in Finland, and then we have handball, which is representative for the Swedish-speaking sides. And then we had 2 ski orienteering. So it's also representative the winter sports, the individual sport, and then being out in the nature. And then we had material arts, boxing, whatever, what is linked to that. And this is our really important disciplines for people who have come or have this migrant background. But also what I'm a little bit missing in all this context, we have all the other minorities, national minorities to Finland, that we have almost forgotten. And these are, for example, the Roma. Be speaking about a lot of how difficult it is for migrant families to pay fees to participate in soccer or basketball. But we have all the other minority group who are struggling with these economic challenges to bring their kids into sports. So but we found in another project, what I'm leading, Gypsy Club Fighters and other clubs connected to material arts where they can practice sports. 5 of them we conducted in the museum, and 1 we had to take via Teams. And each of them could collect, they could provide us, and they could choose which photo material and other material they want to give to the exhibition. So we left it to them what they considered are the most important items to this subject. So now it's a bit funny, but we wanted to give them the feeling that they are at home when they are giving their interviews. So we had now Eva is sitting here for winter scenery, and then we played a little bit soccer with Mostava. How did I choose and how did I find the people? We had our own academic network, because within this project we had also a summer school from sport and integration to talent development. There we met Maurizio and also Eva, but then also from as a soccer coach and ice hockey coach and handball coach, I knew also people from the pitch. So there were also trust was already existing. Here we can see Maurizio, and we chose that he is standing next to Lauri, or sitting next to Lauri Markkanen. He's sitting much more comfortable as I do. So I got really critics from how I was sitting there. The challenge faced by the interviews, when they, for example, limited representation role models. For example, when Eva came to, can go back? When Eva came to Finland, so it's really, even if it was not difficult for her to learn the language as Estonian, and she had really good skills, knowledge, and she worked as a coach. But then there were these, cultural shocks and barriers. So she couldn't understand that her athlete, she was a coach, said, "Oh, I can't come today. I have to go to a birthday party." How can you? She's born in Soviet Union, and she trained in the Soviet Union, and she was an athlete there. How this could be that you're not going to training, you choose the birthday party of a friend. So such things. But also, is she able to do this as a woman from the Soviet Union, and these things. Then really interesting with the thing with Mostava here. He came from Iran, born in Iran, but his family is from Afghanistan. And in Afghanistan, they had no access to organized sports, because this was only for Iranian people. And then because of family reason, he came to Finland, and then he played soccer on the street, and now everything was organized. So only as an example. Oh, I have to hurry up. So limited representation and role models. stereotyping, ethnicity, nationality, gender, socioeconomic status, structural barriers, language, bureaucracy, financial constraints. And then what everybody said, and also the other ones, the need to constantly prove oneself to overcome assumption about competence, belonging, and identity. And then also, being a colored person in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, sport helps. What we said in the case of navigating identity through basketball, sports can give you guidelines. You are a basketball player, and it doesn't matter what color you are. Everybody of them were really concerned in which direction organized sport is going. It's more and more socio-economic resources who is deciding if you can go the elite path and that you even can participate in sports. And all of them believe that there needs to be alternative career paths in sports beyond elite competitions where money is deciding, where parents are paying one more technical skills coach to improve the skills level of their kids. Conclusion. I think the exhibition is really good to highlight personal voices over institutional narratives and those we find in newspapers about about racial incidents, and then we are speaking not about opportunities and about chances and prospects. It challenges the visitors in the sports museums to rethink who is belonging in sports, and they can look at their own handball team, ice hockey team, where are all the participants are coming from, the kids. And I think it's also a model for museums to work close with research for addressing social issues. As for the museum, it was the first time that they had hosted such a project. And then the message for Finland is a message also that Finland is becoming more and more diverse, and we have to move beyond categories. And also, I didn't like now when I look back that I used the words newcomers, and then we are also only thinking about young people and kids. But we have here, I see a group. We have also people who are 65 plus. Here down, we have a group of Russian-speaking people who came to Finland while they are pensioners. So they are also here. So when we are speaking about inclusion, we have to think about across generations and backgrounds. Looking ahead, reflect on our practices, embrace diversity at all levels of our sports structures, and then we have also to acknowledge that on the grassroots level, we have already the diversity, and there are people who are doing a lot, but they're different kind of people. So we have here, see Vanja Radic, who came from Bosnia-Herzegovina, moved to Finland, was national coach, and then she moved on. She has now Finnish passport, but she has moved on, and in Paris she was the only Finnish person who was coaching or who was in the handball tournament. So we see already diversity is already transforming Finnish sports, and I think it will be only. I think it's only a matter of time, before all these really active persons with this diverse background become also visible at the highest decision-making level in Finnish team sport. And I hope this will be rather soon. And I think I'm now in time.
Thank you. Yes, you're in time. Perfect.
Wait 1 second.
Yes.
Here in the middle, you see the ice hockey mask of Ilya Pasov, and it's really. And on the one side, you see the Finnish line, and on the other side, because he's from Russia, is the Russian double eagle. So it really shows that we have people who have two identities in our sports, but it doesn't matter because he's part of us.
Yes, that is true. Any questions in the chat or? No, not at the moment. If you have any questions, just raise your hand or voice up. What I was thinking that this is true that at those times or even up to these times, there hasn't been so many kind of role models for people with different backgrounds. In these interviews, did it come up that these people that you interviewed now feel like they are actually now the role models for?
I think they had all different experiences. They had all different experiences and they have different life paths, but they had all the sensitiveness and this agenda that and also personal responsible to support the following generation of athletes in navigating in the Finnish sport system.
So they are kind of the pathfinders or path makers.
Yes.
Yes.
And this is a personal agenda. If I'm speaking now of Maurizio Patrese, Mossad Asadi, or Frau Kubista, or Ilya Pasov, they all made their own experiences and did their mistakes and learned the codes and now try to support the next generation to succeed better.
Sounds amazing, and it sounds like we need more of this kind of people in the sports fields, all the sports fields in Finland. And if you're in Finland, I really recommend going to see the exhibition. It's great. I should go again. I've been there once. So
I think it's not only the thing is it's not only now in the sports circles that we are mentioning these role models. This is also a public thing. Now that normal persons are going to visit this, and also politicians can go there and look at this, and maybe they're rethinking the whole story.
Yeah, that is true. Showing these things, bringing them up makes a difference. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can also put them on the chat. Now we continue with Jatta.
But you also can contact me if there is something.
Yes.
Contact me if you.
Definitely. Just write your questions in the chat or contact Malte. Oh, wrong again, but anyways, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jatta, you're welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for the first presentation. That was really interesting. And I need to go and see that exhibition now as well. I feel inspired. Right. So I should share the slides. Just a second. Do you see them now?
Yeah, yep.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. Right, so, oops, no, sorry, I did something again.
No worries, that happens to all of us. Teams, not always so
Yeah,
easy.
yeah, I'm used to using Zoom, so. Okay, here we go now.
Perfect.
Okay, yes, so let me start. Thanks for having me here today. First of all, I'm really excited to tell you about my research and the research project that I'm a part of. So my name is Jatta Muhonen. I'm a doctoral researcher at the University of Helsinki. And today I'm going to discuss this research project that was really formed around my PhD project called Athlete Wellbeing, Abuse and Legal Protection. Other members of this project include docent Virve Toivonen from University of Helsinki, docent Maria Kokkonen from University of Jyväskylä, and then Professor Antti Aine, who has a dual professorship between University of Jyväskylä and University of Turku, and consequently, these members are also my supervisors in my PhD project. First, I really wanted to tell you a bit about how this project was started. If I can switch the slides, yes. We started, so like I said, the project is really based around my PhD. And I'm a former synchronized skater, a former athlete, so I'm of course inspired by my own experiences from my sports. But also in my past, I worked as a sports psychologist in UK, Scotland, and I noticed that all of the athletes that I'd worked with had experienced some form of abuse. However, the majority of them did not realize that what they had experienced was indeed a form of abuse, and that was particularly true for emotional abuse, which is harder to recognize and realize than, for instance, sexual and physical abuse, which is more clear cut. And that really got me wondering how well are athletes actually able to recognize and react to emotional abuse by coaches that they experience, because this was also my experience as a former athlete, not realizing all the forms of abuse that I experienced and only realizing them later on once I retired. And I also noticed that not much research had been conducted on this at the time, so therefore I decided to do my own PhD, which then started in 2020, which is also consequently when some public cases of coaches abusing their athletes came to the public eye through the media. And that really kickstarted the public interest into this issue of abuse in sports, particularly by sports coaches. But it also kickstarted this kind of reformation into more ethical sports and to safe sports in Finland. So since 2020, much has been done in sports in Finland into becoming more ethical and integrating more safe sports initiatives into Finnish sports as well. But at the time when I started my PhD, not much research had been conducted on abuse in Finnish sports. So it was really the right time to conduct my PhD and to start this research project as well. The project is a multidisciplinary project, and we have the disciplines of sports psychology and psychology here, represented by myself and Maria Kokkonen. Then we have children's rights, represented by docent Virve Toivonen, and then sports law by Antti Aine. And because particularly emotional abuse and abuse are multidisciplinary issues in sports, it requires multidisciplinary actions and research as well. The project is funded by the Ministry of Education and Culture here in Finland, familiarly called OKM here. They started after we applied for the funding 2 times. The third time we were lucky and we got the funding in 2022, and then it has since continued and will continue until the end, or until March of 2026. The aim of the project is to research the prevalence of abuse in sports, particularly in the athlete-coach relationship, the various forms of abuse in sports, and its effects on athletes' well-being. Secondly, we also research factors that cause or sustain abuse in sports. These include realization of children's rights, whether they're being realized or not, efficiency of athletes' legal protection. And then in my PhD, I'm looking at the effect of athletic identity into athletes' ability to recognize and react to emotional abuse by coaches, which I will be discussing a bit more in detail later on. Our project is a mixed methods project, so we're using different methods here to conduct the project. Most importantly, we conducted a survey at the end of 2021, which is really the main data that we are using in our project. But then we also recently conducted some supplementary qualitative research with athletes as well. But the survey is it has both quantitative and qualitative questions. So standard questionnaire items, but also open-ended responses as well, questions. So like I said, I really want to focus on the survey here because it's the main meat of kind of our research, where we got our main information from. The survey was sent to athletes living in Finland, like I said, at the end of 2021 in Finnish, Swedish, and English. And athletes of all levels living in Finland could participate in this survey. Minimum participation age was 12, which is quite low in this type of research. And there was no upper age limit. The survey was forwarded to athletes by, for instance, the Finnish Olympic Committee, Paralympic Committee, and 90 different sports organizations, such as Basketball Finland. And we are extremely grateful and thankful for all of our partners for sending and forwarding the survey to all of their members, for instance, through emails and newsletters and social media, etc. The survey, like I said, contained many different measures. We had, first of all, descriptive measures asking participants' age and gender, and you can see on the sides of the slide here, I have some pictures and snippets from what the survey actually looks like. Then we had individual questions, as you can see here on the left corner, on asking the participants if they had experienced different forms of abuse. Then we created a new measure for emotional abuse by coaches, because at the time, the existing measures did not survey or measure all aspects of emotional abuse by coaches accurately. Then we had more standardized measures of athletic identity, a mental health index, and social health measure. Then we had a pretty standard disclosure measure asking the participants if they had told anyone about the abuse that they experienced. And then some questions on the realization on athletes and children's rights. You can see some of them here on the right upper corner. For instance, one of the questions was, have you received information about what all constitutes as abuse? And lastly, we had open-ended measures where the participants could kind of openly talk about their experiences and share whatever they wanted to in terms of this issue and the survey. And to the survey, we got altogether 3,687 responses from athletes living in Finland, who represented 80 different sports, including basketball was here included. And also, we are really grateful, like I said, for our partners for sending the survey forward, because we got so many great answers to this survey, which is quite rare in a small country such as Finland. The mean age, so the average age of the participants was 28 years old. The minimum age was 12, and like I said, there was no upper age limit. So we had somebody who was also 80 years old participate in this survey, but of course, these were quite few in between. Mostly females answered to this survey, female athletes and athletes of either national or regional level. And now I wanted to kind of discuss the results that we got from the survey in terms of my PhD research, and particularly the first two articles that I have conducted from the survey data. The first one of them has already been published, and you can find it with the name on the right hand upper corner, but you can also find it behind the QR code here if you're interested in reading it. But in the first two articles, I researched the effects of athletic identity on athletes' experiences of emotional abuse by coaches and disclosure of this abuse. And I chose athletic identity based on a past theory by Sterling and Kerr, Canadian researchers, which had not been tested, and therefore I decided to do it. An athletic identity means the degree to which an athlete sees themselves in the role of an athlete and sees themselves in the sports environment. So for instance, if you ask an athlete, who are you? And they respond, well, I'm an athlete, this is all I am, this is my identity. That of course indicates that an athlete has a strong athletic identity. And I want to mention that most athletes do develop strong athletic identities globally, because this is something that sports environments really encourage athletes, especially at the elite level, to do. They are encouraged to only live and breathe sports and really dedicate their time and focus on it. So most athletes do tend to develop this identity, which is really a profound and integral part for these athletes, and therefore I chose it as this factor that I also wanted to see whether it prevented athletes from recognizing and reacting to emotional abuse by coaches in my second article. And like I said, the first two articles were based on the survey data. The second article is mixed methods, so we did also analyze the open-ended measures from the survey for this. The third article will be based on the interviews that I recently conducted. But in terms of the results, in the first article, we saw that a strong athletic identity exposes athletes to emotional abuse by coaches in comparison to athletes who don't have a strong athletic identity, and it prevents disclosure of this abuse. So a strong athletic identity really serves as a barrier that prevents athletes from telling anyone, even a friend or a parent or a peer athlete, about the abuse that they have experienced. And this was particularly true for child athletes who were on these performance pathways towards training for the elite level of sports. These child athletes had the strongest athletic identity out of all the different age groups that we had. They experienced the most abuse, however, they disclosed the least abuse as well, which was a really concerning result. So a strong athletic identity really serves as this kind of barrier, and it's such an integral part of who athletes are that it really is deeply ingrained into them. And of course, in terms of disclosure, we do want athletes to be able to disclose their experiences of abuse, because it's the main means for a sports club or a sports association to see what's happening at the grassroots level in a team or a training group. Is there any emotional abuse happening, or is it a safe environment? And this is why disclosure is so important. But at the same time, we want athletes to have agency over their own experiences in sport and feel like they can actually impact any negative experiences and in general their experience in sports. So in the second article, I of course, based on the first article, wondered, well, why is this? Why does this strong athletic identity have this effect? And why does it serve as a barrier? So in the second article, as a result, I saw that athletes with strong athletic identity inadvertently, mostly unintentionally, enabled emotional abuse by coaches through processes such as rationalization, normalization, and conformity to the prevailing sports ethic, which kind of globally prioritizes success over athlete well-being. And often, if you've talked to athletes who have experienced abuse, you hear them say, oh, well, the abuse is so normal. It belongs to the sport. It's the only way you can get results. It's just normal. So athletes really, they rationalize it to themselves in order to cope in those sports environments. They normalize it and they conform to the sports ethic, thereby unfortunately accepting the abuse. And also when athletes do this normalization and rationalization for years and years and years, in the end, at the end, I saw that some of the athletes did not recognize what all constituted as emotional abuse. But of course, then also some of the athletes dismissed it as well, and not having an effect on them. So we see here that disclosing abuse, it is not a straightforward process, and factors from the strong athletic identity where the culture of sports, for instance, gets ingrained too, and these processes of normalization and rationalization, they go into their athletes' athletic identity and prevents them from disclosing and showing that thereby that this process of disclosure, it's not a straightforward process for athletes. It's not so easy for them to recognize and actually react to the abuse that they experience, and many factors, like I said, athletic identity, sports culture affect this. And of course, the last thing athletes should do is blame themselves for this. We see here that there are bigger processes, psychological and cultural, environmental processes going on here as well. So what sports clubs and associations should really enable or do is have low threshold reporting channels, help athletes, educate athletes into realizing what all is emotional abuse, and empower them to have agency over their own experiences. In terms of other research that we have published from this project, we have 2 English articles published at the moment. We also have Finnish papers published, but these are the international English ones. The one on the left, we published in 2022, which really looks at the realization of children's rights in Finnish sports. And spoiler alert, we saw here that the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child were not being realized in sports in Finland. However, since 2022, there's been significant reformation into including children's rights into different regulations and policies and programs in Finnish sports for instance, by the Olympic Committee. On the article on the right here, which was recently published, we looked at sports governing bodies' responses to athlete coach violence in Finland and the UK. So it was really an article that compared the 2 systems between UK and Finland, and we kind of tried to identify factors that Finland was doing right and UK was doing right. And with the UK system being much older than the Finnish system, and both systems has their faults, but we could definitely learn also from each other in terms of this. So in the things that one country is doing right, for instance, UK's governing body responses and disciplinary mechanisms are really based on children's rights, whereas in Finland we have a better reporting system of emotional, if an athlete has experienced any form of abuse or harassment, our reporting system for that is much better and more independent than, for instance, in the UK. And then we, of course, have much research coming up as well, which we hope to publish. The first article is an article where we looked at what athletes who responded to the survey, and particularly children, thought about safe sports in Finland and how it should be organized according to them. So we really wanted to hear the athletes and children on this important matter. The second article is my personal article on what all is emotional abuse in sports and what is the definition of it, because it's still being contested internationally as well. And then Maria is writing an article on gendered coaching in the eyes of various genders at the moment. And then we have a master's student writing a master's thesis on the effects of abuse on athletes, particularly looking at the effects of the abuse on athletes' social well-being. Yeah, so that is the presentation and in a nutshell, and I recognize that this was only a short snippet into our research, but thank you very much for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions now.
Thank you, Jatta. Yeah, it was short but loaded with information. I mean, really interesting topics you are actually working on. Any questions from our
No, only it's a really important topic, and I hope that other disciplines are looking at your research and not only figure skating, gymnastics, but also other team sports.
I agree. Yeah.
Where is it tough? Where it is this legacy to be tough, and you have to eat, or where is also this idea everything which is inside the cabin in the locker room stays inside the locker room.
That is so true.
It is, and in Finland, most of the public attention of where abuse happens has focused on gymnastics and into figure skating and synchronized skating, but it also happens, of course, in other sports, as we see here from the survey.
We can have a talk here at the university. It would be nice to go for lunch.
Yeah.
And what do you say about this mentality? As I think sometimes when I'm in the locker room, and we have also players already in the younger stage, under 15, under 16, who come from other countries, English speaking, and they really complain and they go to the coaches. But my Finnish players would not go to the coach and not address any kind of critics, what I could have done other or in another way or something like this.
Yeah, so in Finland, we see that there is quite a big, especially in children's sports, there is quite a lot of respect and a power imbalance between a coach and a child. It's really quite big in Finland at the moment, in other countries as well, but here as well. So it would be nice to see, and something should be done about bringing the gap closer so that there isn't such a big power imbalance. And for instance, athletes oriented coaching, or more coaching that supports the autonomy of the athletes and children, is something that could help with bringing the balance, the power balance, more equal.
I always like to speak about the third generation coaching, and this is my aim. But sometimes I have the feeling we are still in the first generation coaching when it comes to coaching on the ice.
Yeah.
But really, when I hear my Danish colleagues, when they are talking about coaching in handball, coaching in soccer, and they talk that the kids are coming to them and are showing, oh, can I do this? Is this useful in my training? And then, of course, and they are discussing. And I have the feeling there's a lot of shouting, there's a lot of discipline, but not really, the conversation is still really much missing.
Yeah. Well, I agree. And the thing about coaching is that often in Finland, we say that there's loads of amazing young coaches coming up who have a completely different mentality on what coaching should be. And yes, that is true partially, but there's also coaches who, for instance, if they've never left the sports arena, they've developed first their athletic identities, which then develops into their coaching identities. And often, if they don't leave the sports world in between, we've seen from research that these younger coaches, they model their coaching based on the coaches that they had. So the older coaches.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. So it's a double-edged sword, but we've definitely seen some progress in these past few years here in Finland, luckily.
And like you, Jatta, said that it's many times it's success over well-being. I think it was really brilliantly put. And also in this case, like if you many the younger coaches, if they have learned to put success over well-being, they might be continuing that legacy, which is not helpful.
Yeah. And often it's said that this mentality only exists in elite sports, and yes, that's true. But because we put the top sports, the Olympics on a pedestal, those values, they really trickle down to the grassroots levels of sports as well. But this is a global issue in sports currently, not just in a particular country or even a particular sport. It's everywhere.
Yeah, and like you said, that the local clubs should be aware of all these issues and have that kind of low threshold tools. First the knowledge, but then the tools, and give the children, like you said, that it was children with the strong athletic kind of identity who maybe suffering the most, that they should actually, it should be low threshold for the kids also. So there's a lot to be done still.
Yes, lot to be done. And what I would personally like to see is that once also an athlete has disclosed abuse, then I would like them to see them receive actual help into, the things that they are going through in terms of the abuse, but also in helping them identify their own experiences. Like we see through my research, it's not a straightforward process. So for instance, if they've complained about the abuse, they might have some sort of an experience and recognize that some abuse has happened, but they might not recognize all that's happened. For instance, the softer levels of abuse, such as aggressive shouting or such.
Yeah, so true. Really interesting. I thank you, and you should have a talk at the university. I think you would bring up some amazing ideas together. Also, at this point, I will thank you all to participating in this. We will share with you the materials and the recording of this webinar. It's been great, and I'm inspired. I hope you are too. And we'll be hearing more in a week, so I hope you all will join us in a week's time, as the theme is cross-cultural coaching. Thank you again, Malte, Jatta. It's been great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.